Climbing Mount CMMC presents CybHer Women in CMMC. Today I am joined by Dy Edington. Dy is the Director of Information Security at AV, previously known as BlueHalo. They recently completed their CMMC Level 2 assessment, and I'm excited to have Dy join us today. Hello climbers, and welcome to another episode of CybHer Women in CMMC. I am beyond excited because today I have a special guest, Dy Edington. Thank you, Dy, so much for coming on here and taking the time to talk with us. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me here. I'm very excited. I've enjoyed the show, and it's exciting for me to get to visit with you.
So let's do a little bit of a recap. I met Dy at Sequest, right, in Las Vegas, and she shared with me that she just recently brought her company through their CMMC Level 2 assessment, and they passed. And I was like, okay, hold on. I need to talk with you. I must talk with you about this because I just want to hear just what it is like, boots on the ground, to be a contractor that has gone through their CMMC Level 2 assessment, you know, the daunting thing that everybody talks about that needs to get done, but like to have somebody that has gone through it, that's not just us talking about it all the time and is a real contractor that's doing it real life is so cool. So Dy, do you want to first go ahead and explain just who you are and what your company does and what you do for the company?
Okay, so I'm Dy Edington. I'm the Director of Information Security for BlueHalo, which is now an AV company. That was a recent change. And we're a defense contractor. We specialize in high energy systems, counter UAS, space hardened systems. So we're very deeply involved in the DIB space. And I have been fortunate to lead our CMMC efforts with the absolute buy-in of all of our teams from the beginning. So it's been a good adventure.
That is so cool. I want you to share this with me, but can you talk about where you started, like when you started in the company, where they were at? Because I think that's a really funny part of your story, and what a whirlwind it must have been for you.
It was. When we first started, we were busily growing through acquisitions at the time. And so, you know, every environment that comes in is its own space. And we were bringing them together, handling those things. I moved from IT into cyber, handled gap analyses, and then on up within the cyber department. And I got introduced to our enterprise CMMC effort in the middle of our gap assessment when the previous director stepped down, and I got a meeting invite, and they said, "This is Dy. She'll be working with you from here on out. We have a gap assessment." Excellent. Okay. But it was good because I came in with no preconceptions about where we really were. And that allowed us to just say, okay, where are we? And then go from there.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting.
So you stepped in really when they were already aware of the CMMC journey and were already on the road to it, but you had just transitioned into this role.
Yeah. We've been very fortunate. Our CIO has led the charge. He saw it coming. He understood the impact as well as the importance. And so he has been a champion for CMMC and for getting us to be early adopters and really embrace it from the beginning. So that made our journey a lot easier.
So you talked about yourself too, going from IT to cybersecurity. What about your CMMC background, like before you stepped into that role? What was that like, and what were you expecting of it before?
So coming into IT, I didn't have a CMMC background. I had plenty of background in program development and in regulation and compliance in another sector entirely, but it wasn't in CMMC. And it wasn't until I saw the POAM, I knew where I needed to be. They moved me over to cyber. And that was my first task. I was given 171, 171A, and told, learn these inside and out. And I was happy as a clam. Wow. It was wonderful. And then from there, I've been able to build on it. So yeah, that was nice. I came in with, again, no preconceptions other than building the understanding as I went, seeing how relevant it is and how much it matters and how it serves to support the work we're doing in the defense space.
Mm,
So
that is
that was
so cool.
wonderful. Yeah. And then I had, like I said, wonderful support buy-in from the executive levels, from my supervisor, from the CIO. So when I said, they have CCP training, I think this would really be beneficial. And they said, excellent, go for it. And when I came back and said, that was really good, did you know there's CCA training? And they said, yeah, if you like it, go for it. And
Wow.
that really helped. It helped me build my base, flesh
Mm-hmm.
out my understanding, and just be a much better resource for the company.
Wow. So I love this perspective too of you going through CCP and CCA training and your perspective of the documentation in the poem before versus after your
Mm-hmm.
training. Like, could you talk about your perspective shift and maybe what you saw before and then maybe how you saw it afterwards?
Yeah, it was really fantastic. We knew when we started our documentation at the end of our gap assessment, we opted to scrap our documentation and start from scratch and build a governance that reflected how we functioned. And that made the most sense to our
Mm,
team.
yeah.
Fortunately, I think the training really bolstered my understanding of the assessment objectives, my willingness to say there are several ways that we could get there from here. And then it allowed me to be more available to IT, to security, to contracts as we started having those conversations. How are you meeting these objectives? And they would say, well, this is what we do. And we could have those conversations because I could bring in what is the intent and where did it come from and what is it tied to? And so
Mm,
that made a big difference. And then as far as the documentation and the support resources, we attended every CS2 we could. Like from the day I knew this was what I was doing, I was like, oh, CS2, excellent. We used the Kiri compliance documentation, which
mhm.
was amazing for helping us to really bound and make sure, hey, we need to get with this team or that team and make sure that they know they need to be documenting these things. And we can put it
Right.
here where it's all tied together. And then we found Future Feed, which gave us a place to keep it all and,
Mm-hmm.
and track it all and understand it in the bigger holistic perspective. So it was wonderful as I learned more and I got to know the people in the ecosystem. I realized we have so many amazing resources. You don't have to go it alone. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to figure it out on your own. Whether it's the CMMC instructors or it's the vendors that have been committed to making this right for a long time, or it's the incredible people who volunteer their time to teach us, to speak to us, to even argue with us. I mean, they're there. They're willing to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't step into the space alone.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
good. Okay, so let's talk about the documentation and implementation of your system. And you talked about, which I love, is discussing the different teams. It's not just one team that you're trying to figure out. There are multiple different aspects of your company that you have to pull into the documentation and the implementation. So could you speak to that and just your journey around that side of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So we wrote a lot of our documentation in tandem as teams, or we would then bring in an outside department and say, okay, you do have a viable role in CMMC compliance. It's not an IT certification. And here are
Yeah.
the things that we need to be able to explain. And by and large, they're doing it beautifully. The people who do it, they get it. They know their jobs. They're amazing at what they do. They just haven't had the time to document it, or they didn't understand the importance of documenting it. And
Mm,
so for us, we needed to sit down and have those conversations and then say, did you know that you need to be passing this to so and so or to this team? And by and large, everybody either, yes, we already do it and we'll start documenting it, or we didn't know. How do we get started? And that allowed us to build that out. But by and large, what made it a lot easier was when I would mention to the VP of Cyber, hey, I'm going to reach out to so and so in subcontracts. Inevitably, he or someone else in upper leadership would offer to write a letter of introduction, an email saying, hey, this is Dy. She's handling our CMMC effort. Your team has some really important parts to play in it. She's here to help make it happen. And that
Mm,
opened the door, and it gave me the authority to then ask for evidence or
yeah.
make suggestions. And
Mm,
I think without that level of support, it would have been an uphill swim
yeah.
when somebody from the corner of cyber reaches out and starts asking for documentation from your department. It was, again, a team effort, not just our InfoSec team, not just IT doing what they do and standing up an amazing system, but also the collaboration, the communication, and the introductions, the support, the message
Mm-hmm.
across the board that this matters. Let's make it
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, that's so good. What would you say was the most difficult part of implementation with the teams? Or maybe it was a specific team implementation, but what would you say was the biggest challenge?
So I think the biggest challenge for us, and I suspect we're not alone, is
Mm-hmm.
if CMMC is not part of your strategic vision, then the strategic plan, which gets refreshed regularly, that's what keeps it strategic,
Mm-hmm.
it tends to push your CMMC efforts out or to the side. For us, it was ongoing acquisitions and okay, now we have to integrate this into our environment and make it fit and document it and keep up with that. And we
Yeah.
did. You know, we went in 2 years from gap assessment to level two third party assessment. We doubled in size. We
Wow.
had 8 new companies brought into the fold, and that kept everybody on their toes. So I think that was one of our biggest challenges was keeping up with it in a timely manner uh, without letting other important things fall by the wayside.
Yeah, right. Because because it would be nice to say you could just disregard all the rest of the company and just focus on CMMC for, a year
Yeah,
or so. But that's part of the challenge of still having, you know, a company that is running efficiently while also implementing such a huge thing, right?
right, right. And before you can integrate an environment, you have to assess it and
Mm-hmm.
understand where it's coming from so that you can walk that path. And that takes an all hands on deck concerted effort. Everybody's got to be willing to do it. We did find that as we better understood our environment and we were better positioned within the CMMC framework, it made integrations so much easier because
Mm,
we knew exactly what to look for and we understood how they needed to fold in. And that was a big benefit for everyone, I think.
wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love how you said this even at the beginning of this discussion was the leadership buy-in, and it trickled down from that. Like it started with that and you wouldn't have been able to even and you said 2 years, and you had a big feat for yourself to do this for the whole company, but imagine if you didn't have those introductory
Oh,
emails. Like I couldn't imagine what it would be like for you. It's like pulling teeth constantly to get this done, which is
it
so
is.
critical. Oh,
It is hard. It is. I could not imagine doing it without the support that we had, because
mm-hmm.
I did try early on. You know, when I was new to the role, and I would just reach out to someone. Hey, I need to get a copy of this bit of evidence, this artifact for our CMMC effort. They're busy. They don't know you.
Yeah. Right.
You know, it's hard.
Right, right,
And
right.
and I'm completely sympathetic because I get requests on my end as well, and I have to stop and
So
think,
true.
okay, what do they need? What are they trying to accomplish? And how can we support that?
Mm,
Um, because people took the time to do that for me, and I
yeah.
appreciated it. Yeah.
What about okay, so you said you did the CCP course and then you
Mhm.
discovered that there's a CCA and you're like, "Hold on. Why don't I do that?" What made you say, "Hold on, I want to do that?" Like you're a little bit cray cray for for like not everybody wants to just do the CCA course if they're not wanting to be an assessor. What made you do that for the implementation process of your company?
Because we were seeking a level 2 certification, and I knew I would be better at advising, supporting, finding resources if I had actually studied well and deeply all of the level 2 controls versus the level 1 that CCP offers. So it made sense to me to go ahead and do it. And then I did pass my CCA and am now in the marketplace, which was nice.
Yeah, congratulations. I saw that
Yeah.
on LinkedIn, so that's so exciting. And I mean, I wholeheartedly agree like that everybody should go through the CCP and CCA.
Oh,
Not necessarily like that they have to do the tier 3 background check and wait to actually be in the system, you know? Just the
just
class
take the
itself.
classes. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the conversations, the
Yes.
opportunity to ask, now wait, what if? Because like we said, there may be 1,000 ways that you can meet the intent of an objective, and probably 800 of them are valid. How do
Mm.
you differentiate the other 200? How can you see a bad idea coming? Or how can you say, yeah, we could do that, but we need to pay attention to these peripherals? When you've had that training in the assessment objectives and the depth and the connectivity of it all, it makes it a lot easier to have those discussions and to bring useful input to the table, and
Mhm.
instead of no, no, we're not doing that.
Yes. What
Yeah.
about too, since you've gone through the CCA
Mhm.
course and now you have gone through a CMMC level 2 assessment, like
Mhm.
like how much more difficult do you think it would have been for you without taking the CCA and knowing that side of it, stepping into an assessment, like a CMMC level 2 assessment for the first time for a company?
It would have been doable,
Mhm.
and it because all of the resources that you need are available.
Mhm.
It would have
Mhm.
taken us a little bit longer, and some of the discussions that we had internally probably would have been longer discussions
Yeah.
than they were when I could kind of come back and say, well, this is what we're looking for. This is what the CAB says. Be able to speak through the lens of an assessor. I think the big delta really was it allowed me to answer all of our team's questions well. So when they did
Yeah.
their interviews, the interview portion of the assessment, they enjoyed it. Like everyone, they were like, that was really fun. That was great. That felt so good. And they did not think that going into it. They really did. They were wondering why they ever listened to me ever going into it. But on the
Yeah.
other side, they realized they were prepared and it was
Wow.
enjoyable. They were proud of what they'd done and they were prepared to articulate what they'd done and how well they'd done it. And it made such a difference, especially for our hardworking guys that went into IT so they could put their hands on and do things,
Mm.
not so they could sit in a conference room and talk to people. And
Right. 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 That makes
but they
sense.
came in and they were prepared, and
Yeah.
so for us it was fun. And I have yet to have anyone not roll their eyes at me when I say that, but
I love it though.
it
I wanna
was.
dive into the preparedness when you're talking
Mhm.
about they were prepared. Did you sit down like lawyer to to client kind of thing before a case and like interrogate them? Is that what you're meaning by that preparation piece for them?
No, and we didn't really, I mean, we did sit down and we had the mandatory talk. There's going to be a silence after you've answered. Embrace it. Do not keep
Right.
talking. We did do that. But really, the preparation came early on when we
Mm.
sat down and said, okay, what is this assessment objective? What is it looking for? How do you do it? How do you know it? How can you prove it?
Wow.
And just sitting there talking, they went, oh, yeah, we do this and it's right here. Can you grab me a screenshot of that?
Hmm.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And then we set up, a quarterly Kanban calendar. And so
Hmm.
once a quarter, like, hey, is it still set like that? Is it still functioning? And they go, yes, here's your new screenshot. So it changed the way they think about documentation, and it changed their comfort level. They realized, yeah, we got this.
Wow.
So
That
by the
okay,
time they came
that's
in, yeah,
huge. Yeah. So it's so really I think this is such a big part that I honestly, Di, when you said this to me, even when we were talking about this, it hit me in the face of like addressing the implementation of each team separately. And the way that you did that helped them prepare even for assessment discussion itself because
yeah,
you didn't just throw, a little piece of paper that said, tell me all these things to each of these companies. You sat down with them individually and met them, where they're at. And that helped them even prepare on their side for that assessment
hmm,
piece.
it did. It did.
Uh,
And
that's
and
huge.
as we wrote out our SSP, we didn't write what we thought we should do and then tell them to do it. We got with them and
Wow.
understood, how are you doing this? What does it look like? What tools do you use? And then we wrote to speak to that. So we were backing them up. They saw us as their cyber team, and it allowed them to articulate and kind of work that out ahead of time that, oh, we think we're just onboarding, but you're not. You're doing so much in your onboarding, and it's amazing, and you need credit for that.
Mm-hmm.
So it set them up to succeed in so many ways.
Wow. And you know what that makes me think, and this just like honestly makes my brain explode of like how powerful a system security plan is when
It
when you
can be.
face it in that way, because it feels like a real life living document of what you guys do and not just words on a paper,
Yeah.
jumbled up to
Right.
check a box. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. No buzzwords. Don't put buzzwords in your SSP. No, and you're right. I had to PDF our SSP for a DIBCAC request, and I PDF'd it, and then I was reviewing it because you never know what may happen when you PDF a document.
Yes.
And I was going through it, and I got a little teary-eyed. I was so happy. And my boss is like, "Are you crying?" I'm like, "No, you're crying." He's like, "No, I'm not." What? I said, "Because this document truly represents everybody in the company doing what they do
Mm, mm.
incredibly well." It was exciting. And so I do have a natural affection for our SSP.
But I
I
think
really
that's,
do.
I mean, we laugh about it, but still, I feel like this is what it was written for. It's like it was supposed to
Yeah.
be taken seriously in this way. And it should be approached with this type of mindset, that you should be, by the time you're done with it, you've poured, each of your team's individual parts into this, that you should be
Yeah.
proud of, what you've accomplished, right?
Right. Because it's what we've accomplished. We did
Yeah.
it together. And I just wrote it down. So, which
Stop.
is,
No, I wouldn't say you just wrote it down, but I mean, you can say that if you want.
but in the
But
holistic scheme of things, it's really is. It's everybody. Just so when you hire your HR people and they're amazing, and your contracts people and they know their stuff, and it comes together. And if you tend to your SSP with that kind of mindset,
mm,
then you get to reflect what they do and how well they do it.
wow. What
Yeah.
about What about the aftermath? Okay, everybody talks a lot about the assessment and preparing for the assessment and whatnot,
Mhm.
but your business is still living on past that point. It's not just the assessment and then you're done and woo, the end. That might be
Right?
kind of nice to do that, but but that's not how it works. What have you learned through, the maintenance piece of it and in the afterwards that you could share with people going through this?
So this is just the beginning. This
Mm,
gets you off to a great start. And hopefully, as you were building your CMMC evidence package, when you saw, oh, it'd be cool if we could do this, put it in an operational plan of action. Put it on your backlog, bring it into the
yeah.
next sprint, make it your reality. And that's the maturity portion of it. It's not just CMC. It's the maturity. So you keep those relationships going, you keep those conversations going. In our case, because we do act as a prime for a lot of our contracts, we're very fortunate. We have a lot of subcontractors who are staring down the barrel of the final rule went live.
Right.
What does this look like for us? And so I've been working with our subcontracts team for the last 2 years to build up good supports, good flow downs, good resource decks, to find ways to support them. And now I get to focus on that a little more. I manage the continuous monitoring and of course policy review, update. So I'm still poking people. That's still my professional job title is I am an official, document harasser. But just to make sure, hey, are you still doing it this way? Is that still working for you? What are we going to do going forward? But we've been able to build a support stack and start identifying reputable, good, solid CMMC resources, especially people who are focused on the small and medium size, that whole SMB sphere, which is very vulnerable right now. And we want to keep that critical support and supply chain viable. So we've been developing partnerships with people. Hey, can we keep you on hand? And when we identify somebody who is maybe at risk or a critical supplier, we can find out what they need, where they are. And if you're a good fit, we could make an introduction. Wow. And then you could help them with what they actually need. And our subcontracts leads have just been amazing about that. They show up to the demos and the calls, and they've been great. And we're excited to build out that support. We can't do it for them, but we can absolutely be there with them, as a partner.
Wow. You are the prime that all the subcontractors want.
We'll see. I don't know.
But
we're there
crazy.
if they want us.
Yeah, honestly, that is so inspiring because it doesn't just stop with you and your maintenance, but you're thinking about, which is critical because that's part of 32 CFR is the primes are responsible for their subcontractors. And I think you bring up an excellent point with that of how you've taken even that responsibility seriously, where it didn't just start with your level 2, but then you took all of that and are preparing and helping with that evidence and that learning and that training gathering for your subs below you to have resources that maybe they wouldn't have, right, if you didn't give them that.
Right. And it can be scary if you already know, oh gosh, they're going to expect this of me. I don't know where to start. And you Google it. That can be a little rough. You can get some non-reliable Google results there. So we wanted to help cut through a lot of that. And it's not necessarily like we haven't partnered with people in a business relationship, but it's folks that have been consistent. They've demonstrated their knowledge and capabilities. And these are people that, okay, we would trust you with our subs. We trust you to treat them as well as you've treated us or as you've treated others in the ecosystem. And like I said before, you don't have to go it alone. The CMMC ecosystem is amazing. The conferences are consistently the only place where when I talk with the hotel staff, they say, we've never seen people so happy to be at a conference. What is this? It's documentation and compliance. And really, but it's a special environment, just filled with people who are there because they love what they're doing.
Yeah, we're all just psychos together,
a little bit,
crazy person community that likes to do things that people maybe wouldn't expect to enjoy doing, like documentation of a whole system security plan. That is so awesome. I have to ask, Dy, before we close out today, are there any kinds of advice that you would give somebody who is in the start of their CMMC Level 2 journey, and any advice that you could leave with them listening?
So embrace it. Like if you're at the start, you are on the way to a really good path. I would say communicate the importance and the need. If you're not comfortable with business speak, learn to translate. because having that executive buy-in is such a game changer. It really is. Also, remember, it's not an IT cert. It's just not. You're going to need to understand how your security team works, facilities, recruiting. It's amazing. There are 3 or 4 controls that the recruiting team could speak to when we did our assessment. And once you start understanding that and understanding what your people are doing, you'll be able to help connect them and bolster them. And then we rise or fall together. And getting your level 2 cert is the same way. You're going to succeed together. So just embrace the adventure. Learn everything you can. I think it was it Ryan Bonner who said that the way to become an expert is to outread everyone?
That sounds like something Ryan would say, I believe it.
It does. It does, but it's true because it's all there. You just read and discuss, come to the conferences, don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
Everybody started out by asking questions, and don't be afraid to get it wrong and then push through until you understand. And then it just gets better and better.
Well, I know I can relate to. I only started with interviewing people that knew way more than me, and it's amazing what I learned just from interviewing people who knew way more than me. So, yeah, that is so true. I love that. And Dy, thank you so much for taking the time to discuss just even a little part of your journey and your perspective on CMMC Level 2 and your certification. And congratulations to
Thank you.
The large feat that you have tackled and the mountain that you have climbed, I guess, as I should say.
That's right. They have climbed it. It's good. And thank you for having these podcasts. Like I told you when we first met, it's so encouraging. And there were days where I was like, I'm so tired and I'm not entirely sure this is going to work. And I would listen to a podcast and I would listen to an MSP that was putting in the work to get certified, or listen to others who have really gone the distance. And I thought, okay, it's doable. This is not an unachievable task. It's not. We can do this. So thank you for being that voice of encouragement just consistently and bringing resources and encouragement to people. It makes a difference. It did for us.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. And you being on here too, I'm sure has really encouraged many people that are listening to this going down literally the journey that you have just gone down and are continuing to maintain. So that's huge. Thank you so much, Dy. And guys, if you're listening to this and you have specific questions too, you can put them in the comments below. And also, please make sure to subscribe and check out. Also, Dy has a LinkedIn, so you can stay up to date with what she's doing in her company and whatnot, which is so cool. And please make sure to also, if you're subscribing on YouTube, to hit the notification bell so you can be notified when we upload a new video. But again, this is CybHer, and every Thursday we post Climbing Mount CMMC content as well. But again, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and remember, as always, keep on climbing. See you guys.